Peace, peace, peace. Resurrect, resurrect. Thank y'all for coming through. We feel free to come to the front, man. We're a small group, so we are the wisdom. So come to bring up the energy. We're gonna start off with a libation. So the altar, we're gonna light the altar, wake up the ancestors. Libations are ancient African practice. So, you know, this altar right here have all of the elements on it. Water, fire, earth, spirit, the material, right? And our ancestors' wisdom from the Black liberation tradition, the Pan-African tradition, standing on top of that. So we waking up the ancestors within ourselves, within us, right? So we always start off with the black candle. Ooh, Jasir, you might gotta help me out. There we go. Let's turn some. Let's get the rest of these. You don't like the black one?
Yeah, just the black one. Always in unity. Always unity first.
So we want to start this libation off to really welcome in the spirit of ourselves, the spirit of this place right here that we in, and the spirit of the ancestors that we all come from, and particularly in a good way. And we really like this libation by saying we want to give honor to those great ancestors who are the birth of human origins, right? Them ancestors that birth human origins that all humanity come from. We say Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe. We want to give birth to those ancestors who gave us civilization, who taught us math, who taught us science, psychology, astronomy, right? And who come from all directions. They came from the east. They came from the south. They came from the west. They came from the north. We say Ashe.
Ashe.
Tonight we here talking about co-optation, counterinsurgency on our community-specific wisdom. How do we protect our community wisdom, right? We want to give a special shout out to the ancestors of the non-traditional approach to criminal and social justice. Let's give a warm Ashe to Eddie Kabaka Ellis. Ashe. Let's give a warm Ashe to Dr. Alice Green.
Ashe.
Let's give a warm Ashe to Larry Lukeman White.
Ashe.
Let's give a long Ashe to the many named and unnamed warriors of the 1970 prison rights movement, our brothers and sisters all in New York, across the country, outside of the waters, who fight imprisonment, who give us strategies to fight imprisonment, right? Who give us strategies to live under systems of imprisonment. We say Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. We're going to pass it to Jasiri to keep it going. Shout out to Baba Hassan coming through.
Ashe, Ashe. With our libations, we also are giving vibrations through a poem written by Assata Shakur, The Tradition. Carry it on now. Carry it on now. Carry it on. Carry on the tradition. There were black people since the childhood of time who carried it on. In Ghana, in Mali, and Timbuktu, we carried it on. Carried on the tradition. We hid in the bush when the slave masters came holding spear. When the moment was right, leaped out and lanced the lifeblood of our would-be masters. We carried it on. On slave ships, hurling ourselves into oceans, slit in the throats of our captors. We took their whips and their ships. Blood flowed in the Atlantic, and it wasn't all ours. We carried it on.
Ashe. Ashe.
Fed Missy arsenic apple pies, stole the axes from the shed, went and chopped off master's head. We ran, we fought, we organized a railroad, an underground, we carried it on.
Ashe.
In newspapers, in meetings, in arguments, and street fights, we carried it on.
Ashe.
In tales told to children, in chants, in cantatas, in poems and blues songs, in saxophone screams, we carried it on.
Ashe.
In classrooms, in churches, in courtrooms, In prison, we carried it on.
Ashe.
On soapboxes and picket lines, welfare lines, unemployment lines, our lives on the line, we carried it on.
Ashe.
In sit-ins and prayings, and marchings and die-ins, we carried it on.
Ashe.
On cold Missouri midnights, pitting shotguns against lynch mobs, on burning Brooklyn streets, pitting rocks against rifles, we carried it on.
Ashe.
Against water hoses and bulldogs, against nightsticks and bullets, against tanks and tear gas, needles and nooses, bombs and birth control, we carried it on.
Ashe.
In Selma and San Juan, Mosaic, Mississippi, in Brazil and in Boston, we carried it on.
Ashe.
Through the lies and the sellouts, the mistakes and the madness, through pain, hunger, and frustration, we carried it on.
Ashe.
Carried on the tradition. Carried a strong tradition. Carried a proud tradition. Carried a black tradition. We carried it on.
Ashe.
Pass it down to the children. Pass it down. Carry it on now, carry it on to freedom. Asada Shakur.
Ashe. So to bring some energy to the ancestors to close that out, that drum wisdom. So we are blessed with the sacred wisdom of our ancestors. And that's a responsibility for you to be your ancestors, the best versions of your ancestors. And we bring in that spirit here. Today, we want to ground, once again, this conversation in black love, black power, right? Pan-African sovereignty and building, fighting against imperialism on all fronts, starting with ourselves, right? Starting with our families, right? And we got to maintain the African spirit. We got to develop the African spirit, right? And that's a daily practice. And that's what the non-traditional is approach. Once again, we want to ground this conversation in the wisdom of our ancestors, Eddie Kabaka Ellis.
Right on.
We want to ground this conversation in our ancestors, Dr. P. Green. We want to ground this wisdom in Larry Luke Ma White. We want to ask you do you know them? Have you read their works? Do you know the movements that they are part of? That's what this grounding is asking you to ask yourself and to continue asking yourself after this conversation. We want to ground this conversation in the non-traditional approach to criminal and social justice that H.O.L.L.A has continued to develop to human and healing justice. And we want you to let you know that that's also the way that we carry the NTA is a libation. Right? It's a daily practice that we honor the work of our ancestors, so we live our lives according to that. It's a daily libation. Right? And it's paying homage not only to ourselves, but to our lineage. Right? What lineage you come from? Who your teachers? Who your mothers? Who your fathers? Who your babas? And this is a time to understand where your ideas is coming from. Who gave you your ideas? It's a time for serious analysis. You got to understand what ideology you got in your mind, in your heart, in your spirit, and why you got that. And you got to decide if that ideology and that spirit, is it towards liberation for the people, particularly for black liberation? That's a question. It's a serious time. You can't have ideas and ideologies in your heart and your spirit, and you don't know where they come from, and you don't know how they're driving you to think and to eat. That's very important. It's a serious time, and we want to ground this conversation in that. And our mother ancestor, Francis Cress Westland, said that black people, a lot of our people, we ask each other what's going on. And we ask that because a lot of us don't really know what's going on. And she said anytime we have a conversation, right, we should be knowing that the war is going on. They warring on our people. They warring on our minds. They warring on our spirit. They dropping literal bombs and they dropping spiritual bombs. Right? And it's breaking down our families and breaking down our communities. Right? And we got to understand that the war is going on. That's what's happening. And we got to make sure that we know that the war is going on and that we working to make sure that we bring a just end to that war so that our peoples can have peace on this planet. And that's Mama Dr. Frances Cress Westland. I'll pass it to Civic.
So welcome again, Marasi, to continue to expand on different aspects of the war, right? And this is what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about different aspects of the war. And one aspect that we want to really hone in on is psychological warfare, right? How the capturing of our minds, right, is the actual way in which we actually live out the colonized mindset, right? Living out the different practices and teachings and the ways in which we even think about prison, education, the way we treat each other within our communities, the way we want to, even this democratic system, which is a hypocrisy, right? All of it is a psychological tool to control our minds, control our spirits, control in the ways in which we think. So then we believe that, this is truth, right? Amos Wilson talked about how, that they control the information. They control what we think is true information. Yep. If you see this is on CNN or ABC News, you think that's true information because it's there, right? So you believe in the agenda of the United States. You believe in the agenda of the Trump administration killing and murdering and going to war with other nations, right? And the attack that he's doing domestically here on our communities, right? So if you're not reading or watching anything else outside of those streams, you are being controlled. Your mind is being controlled. Because how do you combat that?
It's sad with that. It's sad at the fact that most people don't even realize that they are. They'll vehemently back for this guy as if he's some sort of like messiah figure or some sort of freaking holy figure. In reality, I'm like, dude, he's a liar and con. It's like there's so much evidence, and yet people are just so they'll cut their mind off to it because they can't. They don't want to visit.
And that's another part of the site. That's a great part, as you mentioned about the psychological warfare, because you can know something and still not do nothing about it. Because as we've learned from our ancestors, people are paid, tricked, and trained to do so. Yep. Right? People are paid, tricked, and trained, and because of that process of being paid, tricked, and trained, it literally makes you docile and makes you complacent to the war. It makes you acceptive of those things. So this is why we wrote the article, right? Because we wanted to talk about specifically how the non-traditional approach to criminal social justice have been co-opted, have been stolen, have been plagiarized, and have been pushed through have been pushed through operations such as restorative justice, which is supposed to be an alternative to criminal punishment, right? This article is a response in one of our defense to counterinsurgency attacks against the non-traditional approach, against our Black liberation tradition, H.O.L.L.A, and the communities that were organizing against, that were organizing within the prisons. Many people don't say anything about this co-optation, right? About this co-optation of the non-traditional approach. However, we continue to stand on that legacy. And we continue to push that work and study our ancestors' works. And they told us, right, that certain frameworks are not from us, are not within us, are not a part of us. This article is also, building on a protracted struggle of institutional memory of the non-traditional approach and healing justice.
Let's everybody settle in. We got the family coming through.
Yeah, I want to
Come sit up close. Everybody sit up straight. Everybody sit up close.
So second door to your left. Ashe. So I want to share a quote from Erica Woodland and Kara Page. We want to make a clear distinction between the healing justice framework explored in this anthology and other work by the same name rooted in restorative justice, reform, and healing the criminal justice system. The healing justice framework that we speak of is abolitionist and anti-capitalist and does not seek to reform and heal the prison industrial complex. And over this process, talking about, and we, this is in the framework of the non-traditional approach that we, are building off and continuing to human and healing justice. And so over the last 3 to 4 years, we done had a lot of healing circles. We call that, in our Afrocentric terms, we call that Suruj Ma'at, restoring balance, right? So we had Suruj Ma'at circles, right? And in these Suruj Ma'at circles, right, over 40, right, we had conversations with different leaders from different organizations, non-for-profits, right? And within, and we had large gatherings, bringing other folks together. And within that process, it was really to talk about, what is the type of healing that we need within our movement, within us, between each other as organizations, right? And some of that stuff was the attack that we're going through by philanthropy, the attack that we're going through by certain practices and systems that are not for us. And one of those was restorative justice. So we asked folks to read the article, right? The article is on our website, H.O.L.L.A.com. And when you go to the report section, you can find the article, a case study of restorative justice, co-optation of the non-traditional approach. What's so restorative about white supremacy, program pacification, and counterinsurgency warfare? And the article breaks down 3 sections. One, the first section about prison equals warfare, white supremacy science, colonization, and counterinsurgency. Section 2, H.O.L.L.A's response to counterinsurgency attack on the non-traditional approach. Section 3, Black August and the Long Adder Revolt. Section 4, the non-traditional approach, the origin and roots of restorative justice. Section 5, nonprofits and counterinsurgency, the current attack on the non-traditional approach. And the last section, a call to abolish restorative justice paradigm from the Black African community. And right now we're asking folks to repost the article, right? We've written this, like I said, about 2 years or a year and a half ago. And this is a continuum that we've been talking about and are standing on from our legacy as we combat.
We can get access to the article and read through it, all of it and everything? Right?
Yes. HealWithH.com, and you go to the report section, you'll be able to find the article.
The article is on our website right here, HealWithH.com. Go to reports, scroll down, click on it, bam.
It's the whole thing.
Got the article right there. Peace talk. Peace, resurrect. We just had a lot of spirit, a lot of African, matriarchal, indigenous spirit that fled the room. Shout out to our family, Harlem Peace Walk in the building.
Right on.
We got our Baba Hassan in the building for the energies that coming all over the place. We just wanted to say we grounded in a revolutionary Pan-African love. We lit the altar of our ancestors. We got our set grounding us. We got our red, black, and green grounding us. We got all elements on the altar. Fire, water, spirit, all directions on the altar. And it's standing on the wisdom of our Black liberation struggles. We got some events going on over there. Get you some flyers. Make sure you tap into that wall over there. Take some flyers. We got our political prisoners on the wall over there. You can scan the QR code and learn about our political prisoners. You can write our political prisoners. And we got some food in the background. Some snacks. Another one of the NTA elders just came in the building. What's up, Kenny? Welcome to the conversation.
Peace, everybody.
So we're gonna have a couple of performances. So if somebody This is impromptu, but we got some community folks. After we do this intro, we're gonna do some a performance or two. So if somebody else wanna perform, I got you. Some black love, some Pan-African love, some community love, something that's uplifting, that's about the people. Please share it. Please share it. We got a room for one more person. Something quick. We gonna pull you up in a minute. We got you in a minute. So we just want to say that y'all should read the article. The article is online, but this is some of our analysis. You can, if you don't want to read it.
Where do you get it in? Because I'm on the website.
All right, go to reports. Go to reports. Everybody, we asking people to repost the article too. So if y'all got a time during this event, repost the article to your social medias. Britt, you good? You good? Repost the articles to your social medias. Share it on your website. Let people know to read it. Just some quick summary of our analysis, and we're gonna talk a little bit about it on the panel, but we could really have a deep conversation about our article. We want people to give us feedback on our article, critique the critique, add on to it. We call it restorative justice co-optation. We got a hard line. We saying that we should abolish restorative justice in the African community. Some of the reasons we say that is because it comes from the government. It comes from the criminal punishment system, right? Yeah, it comes from white people. It comes from the criminal justice system, right? Part of that is in our article. It doesn't come from indigenous people. It doesn't come from African indigenous people. Vadum, all of our traditions, we got names for our healing practices. All of the Lakota folks, the Lenape folks, they got names for their healing practices. When you talk to our elders, we don't know where restorative justice comes from, and when we find it, it literally pops up in the criminal punishment system led by white folks, right? That's where that comes from in the 70s. Number two, which is part of number one, is not from African people's science. It don't come from Asada. It don't come from Baba Hassan. It don't come from Vadum. It don't come from Santeria. It don't come from Harriet Tubman. It don't come from Ida B. Wells. If these are the things, it don't come from Rosa Parks. These are the things that got us out of freedom, that helped us build civilization, that helped us fight. Why are we going to another science besides our own African science, right? That's number two. Number three, it confuses everybody. What restorative justice would do is tell you that indigenous practices, black liberation practices, healing justice, all of it is just circle work. It's circle work. We just doing circles. But it don't tell you the lineages of those works. It don't tell you the political ideologies of those works, right? It just conflate things and smashes things and erase things and call it circle work, right? And we need to be specific with our analysis. We need to have our lineages, our ideologies, our intersections. We need to have our historical perspective with it. And lastly, restorative justice, because of all this, is accountable to black and indigenous communities. All these years, it's in our schools now. They don't got Ida B. Wells teaching in our schools, but they got restorative justice in our schools. They got it in our homes now. They got it in our criminal punishment. They got it in everywhere you see black people. We got domestic violence. Or we going through interpersonal stuff that come from the system. They try to give us restorative justice, right? Right, so they actually owe us accountability. For one, you giving us something that comes from our community. You giving us something that don't work, that don't solve the root issues in our neighborhood, and you tricking us to make it believe like it worked. Right? You actually got some of us saying we from restorative justice, or let's push this into our schools. So all of that being said, we calling for the abolition of restorative justice. For us, it's clear from our analysis, we don't come from it. We also asking you all because you all might be in spaces that these things come up. I even hear a lot of movement people saying we got to abolish the criminal punishment system and we need restorative justice. That don't make sense because the restorative justice comes from the criminal punishment system. It comes from peacemaking criminology, right? It comes right up out of the criminology literature, right? So I think those things are really important to understand. With that being said, jump in. I see X over there.
I'm actually curious about
dropping with.
Specifically with the. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I got several questions as a person who has taught restorative justice and transformative justice for particularly black and African people. I think that, like, my questions are, yes, I do agree that there are places that have taken on certain traditions and stripped them of their name, and tried to kind of water them down to make them fit into certain systems. I would argue that the public school system was not built for us in the first place. So obviously the things that are in it are going to be taught within it are going to be very sanitized, if not just harmful. But I would also say that there are instances of transformative justice literature and practice that are engaging indigenous and African methodologies and naming them specifically. And so I guess I'm just like worried about what is the utility of denouncing and what is the thing that should be placed in its stead. And that is both internally within our own communities, but also in its use in more general communities. Like I've seen it done really, really wrong, where it kind of sort of puts the blame on the people who are, it's like, you need to figure out how to apologize, it's accountability, that type of a thing, and I think that's harmful. But I've also seen it as part of ceremony, as a thing that is able to still maintain its connection to the lineage that it comes from. And I've tried to use that in the work that I've created around it. Obviously, I'm not from the continent, so I only know what I've been able to study and research, and I do my best to do that. But yeah, I guess that's my question, is what's happening in its stead? What are we trying to tell people that they need to engage in order to facilitate those types of environments?
Well, I think for one, the NTA, we're saying the NTA is a lineage that has a long legacy, and that's what we should be doing. And we also say in this analysis that when you study the lineage of NTA, restorative justice come out of that in the criminal punishment system. When our elders was in prison, it's through their work that AVP came into prison and all this idea of the concept of restorative justice being developed. So we're saying politically and ideology and the state-wise, they use that. They use that concept that don't come from, to your point, some people try to do restorative justice, and like you said, and do indigenous teachers. And indigenous teachers don't need restorative justice to say, I'm doing my culture. We don't need restorative justice to say that this is Vadum, and here go a ritual in Vadum. I don't need and in our African cultures, and I guess other indigenous cultures too, and grassroots cultures from just coming from the civil rights movement and the black liberation movement, we always had internal practices to deal with each other and build with each other that come from our sciences that we use in the 60s that led us to prison. Some of it wasn't the best. Mama Bibi could tell you about how they did healing work and how they held each other accountable, how they started developing, stop using drugs, how they started developing healing practices so we could stop using drugs amongst ourselves. So I think all of those things, I would even say the version of healing justice that pops up from Carla Page, who was one of our sisters, that popped up in 2000, I would say some of the earlier roots would be like in the work of Dr. Matula Shakur. Those works there, the system is attacking us and how we developing healing practices from our community science. And then Harriet Tubman, it's many lineages that will keep that lineage going, that we wouldn't even need to go to what they give us in the literature in the 70s and the 80s and start pushing down our throat into schools, into universities, saying this is your healing modality. To your point, it's a lot of black people that we love, that I love, that do transformative justice and restorative justice, and I think they really doing community work. And once again, philanthropy and schools will let you come in a school and do restorative justice versus Pan-African organizing.
Yeah,
so maybe that makes sense in a cadre sense. I'm not mad at that, but some people don't know what they're doing. Some people actually think these ideas are restorative justice, and so I think it's a dialogue, but I think our stuff is go back to your ancestors' teachings. If you're from Texas, if you're from Mississippi, if you're from there, organize with your elders, organize with your locale, organize with your mom's story, your family story. We all got sciences. That's what Healing Justice said. We all got literature in our lineages. And my last thing I would say is that restorative justice make our community wisdom illegal. Right? As restorative justice is getting popular, the tactics from our community wisdom become terrorism, Like you said about education, they make our breakfast program, they steal it. They take our NTA, they're stealing it. The way we did it before, we can't even do it no more. They take our acupuncture program, they put federal laws on it, right? So then the work that comes from our community, you don't even want to do it no more because you get more money doing it this way. You legal doing this way, doula. You better off being a doula than being old school African and doing midwifing because the doula, if you do that, you go to jail, right? So if you ain't understanding how they stole our midwife practices, our mom practices, our healing justice practices, then they make federal laws calling our women dirty nails, making all media around them, and then they make policies, and now 30 years later, white women making doulas, and many, I was almost about to get trained by some white women in doula shit.
Oh my God.
Oh, no, don't do
Oh,
Nah, I had to catch myself, but I'm saying,
Oh nah.
There's
So-
so many black
so-
midwives, doula people, yeah.
I think what you're saying is true. I think it's a lot of those, and that's why we have these conversations like, yeah, how do we hold all of that, but it's also erasing our elders' wisdom at the same time. You know? The war questions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nah, this is good. This is why, this is an intimate setting, and we thank everybody coming here. And just like how we had the conversation with patriarchy, it was intimate, the setting, we need to be able to have space for dialogue, space for conversation, space to deal with contradictions, to figure out how we're going to move forward as a community, right? So I think that's very important. And towards that, we had some more questions, right? So we could share our wisdom with each other and figure out, what do we all know, right? And so the 3 questions we had is, what is the her history of restorative justice? What is the her history of the non-traditional approach? Who are your teachers? What legacy you stand on? And how do you protect community wisdom? Right? And so I'm going to just read off some of the responses that we had here. So for what is the her history of restorative justice, we got Howard Zare. You probably got to write that down. But that's also in the article in the paper, so you can learn about Howard Zare in there. We have Black Panthers, African American prisoners and community. We have nature,
Yes.
safety, security, community. And then we have Eurocentric ideology promoted in criminal punishment. So we have some different variations of what is restorative justice, right? That means we really got to get clear of what this thing is. That's just all what it means. 2, what is her history of the non-traditional approach? Black liberation movement, Afrocentric, the Greenhaven think tank, 1970s prison movement, mass incarceration, class, NTA training with H.O.L.L.A, right? So there we have an understanding of what folks know is her history of the non-traditional approach. Then the 3rd and last question, who are your teachers? What legacy you stand on? And how do you protect community wisdom? Now this question was very important because this goes back to the psychological warfare, right? We are paid, tricked, and trained to do somebody's framework. And we don't even know who framework we're doing, right? So when we ask you who's your teachers, right, that's important because we would believe that that's the legacy you stand on, right? That's how you go about your life, right? Well, whatever you learn, right? Well, when I learned in school, I learned about Shakespeare and all this other stuff. So I didn't know about Kwame Ture. I didn't know about Ella Baker, right? So I didn't follow their teachers. I was following somebody else, right? So it's important when we ask who is your teachers, what legacy you stand on, and how do you protect that wisdom? How do you protect that wisdom? So folks said Black people, creatives, music, organizers, my mothers, my fathers, the Black Liberation Army, the parents, family, and community, Black Panthers, my parents, my church, Sheikh Anta Diop, Carlos, my program, Karen, the Black Panther Party veterans, plus the Cubs,
Plus SB.
Mama SB from Hall and Peace Walk,
Aw.
Dr. Clark, hip hop,
Yeah.
right? So this is what we saying is our teachers and our legacy, right? Sekou Digna.
The feminists and the lesbians and the trans people. Where is Marsha?
Add that in. No, we add that in. Bring in Marsha P.
Where
Johnson.
is the Company River Collective?
Bring that in. Bring that in.
Who else? Sylvia
Rivera,
Bring that in.
Bell Hooks.
Okay, we need to, yes.
Ashay.
That's
Bring
it.
that load them up. Load them up.
I could go on there too. He
We
was
got-
alright.
We got Mommy Watson.
Load them up. Load them up. Queen Mother Moore. Load them up. Load them up. But yeah, so this is, this is also a pedagogy how we learn and teach together, right? Doing the wall questions so we can share and give information and knowledge with each other. So this is what we understand is the history of restorative justice, the history of the non-traditional approach, the history of the non-traditional approach, and who are our teachers? What legacy we stand on, and how do we protect that wisdom? Now, the question of how do we protect that wisdom might have not got answered because we got a lot of, but that's why today is important, right? Because we're going to be actively talking about how are we protecting that wisdom. And one thing that H.O.L.L.A is doing, we wrote a paper to punch somebody in the face. Right? So we wrote a paper to punch them in the, yo, get this restorative justice off me. So that's how we combating that. But just in our regular work, we are continuing the work of the non-traditional approach.
Right on. So give yourself a round of applause for that wisdom. Any quick comments, closing comments to wrap this little part up? Any comments coming up from anybody about what we just covered? All right.
Can't wait to boost the article.
All right,
Right
push
on,
that
right
article. We're going to open the floor up for quick community performances. So one of our community members came to us like, yo, pass that mic, son. I don't know which other on the agenda. Pass that mic. I need that mic. Yo, come here, let me holler at you. I got some work. So without no further ado, I told him as long as it's community love, you can take over the mic like that. He said it's community love. So let's give it to our brother right here and bless the mic.
All right, Carlos.
Oh, Carlos.
Come on. Let's do it.
Yeah, his poetry.
Hello, everybody.
It's words to put it to your mouth. You got it.
Hello?
Yeah, that works.
Yep,
We-
yep.
All right. I gotta do a little poem for y'all guys.
Yes.
All your painters out there.
Yeah.
Let me hear you say, Black Power! Power to the people! Okay, now I'm gonna start. Violets are red, violets are blue, sugar is sweet, and so on.
Hello.
Come on, drop those.
Alright,
Alright, Carlos.
violets are blue, violets are red. Without you, we know what about you.
Hey, pull up.
Okay.
All right,
Appreciate it. Thank you. Now, give a hand to Carlos. We got another.
Let me send it to you.
Yeah.
I got you.
Negus. So we got another performer. Yeah, you get to be with the staff. You ain't gonna share nothing about that African Black history. So we got our brother Negus who's gonna share us some vibrations, a poem, and some wisdom.
What's your number?
Hi everybody.
Peace.
I'm gonna do a piece today that is actually inspired by hood school and like the stuff that X has going on.
Right on.
It's inspired by you.
What?
And also this spear is a spear that I have to represent Pan-African unity and liberation. I kind of just got it because I was at the BAM festival that African festival that BAM does, and it kind of spoke to me. And then recently, I've been getting like the tip sort of modified so that it like just stands out more. Yeah. Sitting before me is the hearts, minds, and spines of the revolution. Brilliant beyond measure, with about as much love as grandma's hugs, solutions for every social ill, and the willpower to move mountains. The most incredible think tank you can find. But I must ask, what do hearts and minds and spines do without a body? Ascend them all together, attach them even, shock it 1,000 times, with all that potential, with all that power. What can a heart, mind, and spine do? What can a mind see without eyes? Where can it move without legs, lift without arms, hold without hands? Can a heart even bleed without blood? See, a revolution is many moving parts. Hearts, minds, but flesh and blood too. What if I told you that a poem could be the reason we find the language for revolution? The words are just on the tip of a tongue, and a mouth that would never imagine a mind capable of thinking what was always felt, but never heard by the right ears? What if I told you revolution needs a spleen and kidneys to process the waste dumped into our communities and turn it into something that fertilizes them? Can I convince you a poem born within you, raised in these rooms, one day needs to grow up and find its way into the world so it can pull together the body of the insurrection that you seek? The difference between correlation and causation between a poem and liberation is whether or not it reaches the people, in the streets, and the farms, and the islands, and the motherland. So if your heart moved by the injustice decided to depend against it for a weapon, or a mind that yearns for freedom from oppression and found a bag of bars in your possession, then may I make a suggestion? Let's take our fight to the streets. Speak in the ghettos, the project courtyards, the prisons and jails, the homeless shelters, and find ourselves a community with those who need it most. Because here's where the hearts and minds can connect the noses and eyes, lungs, bronchi, and trachea, spleen, skin, and scapula, and pull together a full body revolution. Sincerely, a heart that has suffered, a mind that yearns, a griot, a revolutionary.
Right on. Right on.
Last but not least, for those of you who do not know me, my name is Negus, and I'm a Pan-African revolutionary. Thank you guys. Also, I'm organizing an event to basically bring together all the organizers of the city and hopefully the diaspora, but the city for now. So tap with me some more if you want to know more about that. Thank you.
It's today, no?
It's
It's in Brooklyn.
Nah, right on. Ashe.
Free the land, free the land.
Free the land.
Free the land.
I'm gonna follow up with you about
Just-
that poem. We'd love to get that poem
Brooklyn.
recorded or something if possible to share with the community. That was very
Y'all
powerful.
both
Much
in Brooklyn.
appreciated. We should definitely connect. We should definitely connect.
You know me?
Yes, follow the song.
So we are going to move into more of our community-specific conversation, talking about protecting community wisdom. We're going to bring on a video that will give some context to our legacy, the non-traditional approach, the work that we stand on, that continued after the Attica, that further developed in Greenhaven, right, and show up in many names, the Resurrection Study Group, Liberation Study Group, Coencia, a lot of times reentry. We want to start off with a video with Dr. Green and Eddie Ellis, and then we're going to go right into the video of Larry Luke My White. So it's going to be about 12 minutes. Listen to the wisdom of the ideology that we stand on and welcome in the spirit of our ancestors.
I met Eddie Ellis in the early 1980s. He was a former leader of the Black Panther Party in Harlem, New York. I met him at Greenhaven Correctional Facility, where he was serving a 25-year prison sentence as a result of the FBI's COINTEL program, which targeted him, accused him falsely of killing a man he didn't even know, and giving him this incredibly long prison sentence. In 1990, the Quakers sponsored a conference at Greenhaven Correctional Facility. I was fortunate to be in attendance. Eddie presented a most powerful and thought-provoking lecture that I think we can all benefit from today. He talks about the struggle for the non-traditional approach to criminal justice and social justice, and how we must be a part of that struggle. So I think we can all benefit, whether we are professionals, government officials, or social justice advocates, if we listen to what Eddie had to say, contemplate it, and use it as we engage in the struggle for social justice and reform in our criminal justice system.
Before I get started, I just want to make mention of last speaker, Claire Reagan, has been involved in criminal justice for the last 20 years, has been one of our most outstanding advocates, Albany and New York, prison legislation, reform, good times, prisoners' rights, right to get married, publishes a newsletter, and has been on the forefront of every significant change in the New York State prisons since added in 1971. So a round of applause for her. Thank you for coming. Thank you all for coming. I'm gonna try this afternoon. The reason why we're turning this way, facing this way, is because I'm going to use the blackboard, and we had originally intended to do some workshopping here this afternoon. And I'm going to try to take what I've been hearing here and what some of the prisoners have been saying, some of the comments from our outside people. I'm going to try to tie it all together in a coherent whole so that we have some basic idea of what we're doing and where we're going and how we got to where we are and some of our thoughts and some of the things that we've been planning and thinking and doing here at Green Haven and numerous other prisons. The brother from the Baptist Church said he wanted to know what we can do, what are the solutions, where can we go? So we want to talk about that a little bit this afternoon, and we want to try to give you some understanding, especially the community people from rural upstate areas, non-white, non-black, non-Latino people. I want to try to give you some understanding of where we're coming from as prisoners, as inner city people, African Americans, Latinos. We want to try to convey to you a sense of who we are and how we got here and where we hope to go from here. We've developed over the last 10, 12 years or so what we call a non-traditional approach to criminal and social justice. And the non-traditional approach to criminal and social justice here is an examination on the part of prisoners into their own condition, into some of the reasons and some of the causes for their condition. And this examination began with a self-inquiry. Most people in prison have one thing on mind, and that is getting out, going home, returning to the community from which they came. Many of us, most of us, come from inner city communities in New York City. And when we look at our communities, when we look at the places to which we must return, we begin to realize that these communities have become so devastated with crime and drugs and violence and miseducation and a number of other things that leaves precious little for us to return to. We understand very clearly, most of us, that our futures are tied up with those communities. And that if we don't begin to do something now, while we're here in prison about that, we won't have anywhere to go when we leave here. We certainly can't leave outside those communities. The examples have been horrendous for people of color who have attempted to move outside of traditionally accepted areas where people of color live. The violence and the level of destruction is at an all-time high. So as there's been, in addition, there has been, as a result of this overwhelming number of people coming into prison in the last 5 years, there has been a tremendous upsurge in consciousness and in commitment of prisoners who begin to realize that their destiny, their lives are intimately linked to the communities from which they came. And in an attempt to make some sense out of where we are and how we got here, we began to develop these non-traditional approaches to criminal and social justice. The non-traditional approach challenges, it begins by challenging all of the basic assumptions that the criminal justice and the social justice system in this country are underlying, that's the foundation of it. We begin to ask some hard, serious questions about justice in America, about life in America, about the American economy, about poverty, about race, about all of the things that impact on our lives that have eventually led to us coming to prison. We begin to question some of the basic foundations.
Eddie's about to warm up on y'all, man. Shout out to Eddie. He's about to warm up. We're going to go to Larry White. Want to bring in Larry as well. We warming up. We got one of the co-founders in the building, Baba Hassan. So that's his comrades, man. So we loading up. You know, Baba Hassan. You know, these are the ideas that they was cooking on.
World views racism.
Racism, right?
They recognize racism. You know, so we have to change that. We have to go to the churches. We have to make the churches up. And they got some good. I got a whole list of the churches and all the churches.
Legacy, you trying to pass that wisdom on. You see them, right? The legacy.
So, one thing, so this will give you all the advantage over everybody else. Nobody else see it. Your worldview ain't their worldview. Their worldview is the community worldview. You on a higher level, looking down.
Business, like you said.
That's right. That's right. When you went to jail and look back at the community, it ain't like you was in the community. Now you see. Oh, you really do. Oh, now I see. We all in here for better schools, for better education, better recreation, more recreation. Our communities all in for the same thing. I gotta write them and tell them, so what you all in for out here? Y'all want me to come out here and be a better person? I gotta have all the things that you say that you need out there so you can be a better person.
Talk about it. Merge that together.
That's it.
And I like how you merge the fact that we need to have our community, because there's a disconnect between what people think of our community, like what people in our community think of of incarcerated people. Like these.
And not just incarcerated people. They look at certain groups out here in the street. They look at young blacks out here in the street. That's what they're so-called hip-hop stuff or whatever it is, you know.
Yeah.
Because it ain't nothing about shooting up each other and all that kind of stuff. They are.
But I'm understanding that hip-hop really came from us making peace.
Let me show you what happened to hip-hop here. When new guys come into prison, they would come in and tell us, the life is all this. Try to go out there and see young dudes and blah, blah, blah. That's all I was saying. Also, what we want to happen. So they got new dudes and they got a big time. Yeah, I want to go see it. So I can go. So I go down there and say, listen, man. I said, got big time. All that. You got to learn how to do some words. The administration give you a rule book. I'll tell you all the rules and stuff to follow. What I'm here to tell you is how to follow them rules. You know? And to give you help. So we line them up. They come to meetings. They join the organization. And then they be part of it, man. You know? Some of them wouldn't do it. But it fell apart, man. But you don't have the non-traditional approach to prisons, man. Let me tell you about my life. When I came home after all this study, I told him, I said, when I be back. I said, I'll be back. Commissioner let me back. I said, you crazy, man. Commissioner, my ass. My man, listen, go back in this stuff. I came home. All the groups I was writing when I was in prison and stuff, they called me out, they gonna hire me and stuff. I said, what you all about is re-entry.
That about reentry.
Helping people when they come home find jobs, you know, a place to stay, you know, acceptance in the community. That's not what I'm about.
We're not about that,
It's
champ.
about inside.
About that
It's
inside.
about when they come inside, how to tell them not to get caught up in that bullshit.
That bullshit, you heard? That's what
How
we
to
about.
change yourself.
How to change yourself, right?
That's right. There it is. You know? So I'm more about what's inside. You know? That's what H.O.L.A's got to tell us. H.O.L.A, we ain't just about out here, we about inside.
You know, he's a H.O.L.A, we ain't just about out here, we
Not
about
just inside the
inside.
prison, but inside of you too.
That's right.
Things inside of you, your mindset, your way, your world, the inside of you that
That's what
you
we
change.
talking about.
But definitely, like you say, we are also about the conditions in our neighborhood
That's
that
right.
gets us inside.
Yes,
That
that's
brings
right.
us inside.
Ashe, give it up for our ancestors. With that being said, man, the NTA, man, is not just about dates and facts and citations, even though I think we got some of the best dates, facts, and citations. It's about not thinking like a colonized person. It's about resisting traditional thinking, white patriarchal imperialist thinking, right? Ashe. Nah, you good, man. And it's about hope. You know, we need teachers that bring us hope, that make us want to resurrect, that make us want to go home and study something, make us want to think about something, make us want to be like, damn, do I really got this in order? You know, this is how my people are moving. Like, oh, I can move like that too. So shout out to the NTA. With that introduction, we're going to start introducing our elder. I'll pass it to Jasiri to introduce our elder in the room. And also, real quick, you know, we usually don't cover the altar. You know, you see the altar because the ancestors are in the room with us. But, you know, when we're doing performances or important conversations, you know, it's important, you know, it's okay to have somebody be in front of the altar. So we're going to have Baba Hassan sit right here in the middle. We're in the middle of us, Baba.
Side. And so, yes, make some music for Baba Hassan. Thank you.
Cool, I can sit on the side. So.
Yeah, I was just thinking, you can sit on the side. And to introduce Baba Hassan, Hassan Gal is a proud product of Harlem, second Renaissance. Accordingly, its social and community values have always guided his personal and professional endeavors. He has been a substance abuse counselor, a life coach, and youth assistance program developer. He has also developed alternative approaches to social and criminal justice, sponsored by both the National Trust and National Urban League. Yet, his passion is the development of community and evidence-based educational programs that are anchored in the cultural principles of the Ngusu Saba. He is a senior administrator of the Eagles organization and has a MA in professional studies and pastoral counseling. He is a father of 5 children. How long you and your wife was? How long y'all was married for?
Their grandmothers was coming up.
A long time. Him and his wife was married for a long time.
Wow.
Long time. So shout out to just, you know, long black love. And also lived here in New York City. And we have, here in Harlem. And we've just been blessed to just be in relationship with Baba Hassan, reconnecting with the legacy, right? Reconnecting with Larry, Eddie, right? And so, you know, it's an honor to continue to work with Baba Hassan, to learn with Hassan. And so, yeah, we here, so we got a few questions for you. So we thank you. I don't know if you want to say a few words to the people before we start.
No, I'm good. I'm glad you guys showed up. I see most of y'all are consistent. I'm glad Kenny's here today. I neglected to
gonna take us where we need to go.
Yeah. I neglected to reach out to you. I was talking to Corey about that earlier, a couple of days ago, when I said it's probably too late now. He's coming from all the way from Queens, so there's gonna be some difficulty for him getting in.
Nah, thank you, Katie. It's really good to see you too. And I'm gonna pass you the mic once I finish asking you the question. So the first question, right? Standing on the lineages, right? You just saw Dr. Green, Kabaka, Lutman, some of your comrades who helped build the Greenhaven think tank and the non-traditional approaches analysis. That was part of the larger New Prison movement. What was the work you all engaged to develop the Greenhaven think tank, the non-traditional approach movement? Where did that spirit come from? What development and or transformation did you all have to go through and commit to develop this community wisdom? So I'm just going to say that first question again, right? What was the work you all engaged to develop the Greenhaven think tank as well as the non-traditional approach movement? And what development and transformation did you all have to go through to commit to developing this community wisdom?
Brother, that's about 5 questions.
Yeah, right?
You got 8 minutes. You got 8 minutes. Cook on them.
Okay, so let me say that we came to the conclusion that we needed an alternative to civics. So the NTA is actually an alternative analysis to civics. What we should have gotten in school, junior high school, etc. We're not equipped with that learning. So consequently, as adults, we don't know how to use the system because we never knew the system. We look at the system as a necessary evil sometimes, and oftentimes we don't even oftentimes we don't even realize how dangerous the system is, even as we go through it. As you can see, looking at Larry, Brother Lutman and Kabaka, they're elders like myself. So we came through a time when it was very turbulent. I know you guys probably tired of hearing this from elders. Through the 60s, but we got to say that that's part of our foundation. At one period during the 60s, there was, from the 50s to the 60s, the mid-50s to the mid-60s, we call that the Civil Rights era. And from 65 to 75, it's like the Black Power era. But there was a period in the 60s, it was like an era of assassinations. From 63 to 68, there were like 6 or 7 major assassinations in this country. People just being shot down in front of people, not in silence, not in the houses alone, but just murdered outright. And these people were, they were linchpins. They were powerful spokespeople. A lot of their power rests in the examples that they exhibited. So coming through that, in prison in the 70s, that kind of shaped our view of the world, our worldview, what we just saw. We saw the Kennedy brothers assassinated, John and Robert. Publicly, we saw Medgar Evers assassinated. We saw Malcolm assassinated. We saw Dr. King assassinated. And then Fred Hampton assassinated. So it was a litany of like, we don't like you, we're going to kill you. And then somebody that we normally don't talk about, we don't look at him as being assassinated, but he was, George Jackson. Who was an exemplary model of what a revolutionary was supposed to be. He just wasn't talking. I used to say some people that we admired a lot that they talked too much, they weren't doing what they were supposed to do. So when his moment came, he wanted to show that he was serious about what he had read. He read all the revolutionaries in prison. Coincidentally, he was locked up when he was 17 years old and was murdered when he was 29 years old. And all that, so he didn't have this education in the street. He came out, he wasn't even a high school graduate when he came to prison. When he left, he was like a PhD. So one of his most endearing quotes to me, can y'all hear me? I think y'all can hear me without the mic, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's on live. It's on live?
It's just 'cause
Is
of
it live?
camera.
It's recording, but you
you back to the mic, right?
Yeah, it's for live too.
Yeah, we recorded so we could.
Sorry, but you told it for flow, Bible. How it feel good to you, man?
So one of his most endearing quotes to me was that I might not have but 30 seconds to live, but I'm going to live them on my terms. So when he had his weapon and his opportunity, he used it. You know, he just didn't brandish it, he used it. So 5 people died in his quest to relieve himself of that dire state that he was in. And before that, he's a member of the Soledad Brothers, which 3 men who were accused of throwing an officer off a 3-story tier in Soledad. Because that was a retaliation for guards on the tower shooting men in the yard. You know, and they felt that if were black and white guys fighting, they shot the black guy. So as soon as they were able to isolate an officer, something happened. I don't know whether George actually did it, but he was accused of it. And then his brother, for those of you who do not know the story, we talk about the non-traditional approach. I just want you to know how we got there. His brother, Jonathan, 17 years old, attempted to free him from court. However, George didn't go to court that day. 3 other men went. His brother went on with the program, what he decided to do. So he had weapons. There's a famous picture of a judge with a shotgun taped around his neck, a sawed-off shotgun taped around his neck, and one of the men that Jonathan is helping is escorting him out of the courthouse, you know, trying to get to a car. They had a car outside, it didn't work. Men were killed, the DA was crippled for life, etc. because they just opened fire once they got outside, once they went in the car. But that's the kind of determination that George had instilled in his young brother, 17, and George was 29. That was the next year, after that happened, George's situation happened, his escape attempt happened. Okay, George is a direct descendant, linear descendant from Nat Turner. You have to appreciate that. I know we talk about the non-traditional approach, but you need to understand that. A direct descendant from Nat Turner. Nat Turner rebellion was August 21st, 1831. George waited until August 21st, 1971 to do what he wanted. He wanted to commemorate that, pardon me. I don't know why I'm chopping this up like this. So when that happened, when George was assassinated in prison, it was hard for us to believe. We read in the newspapers and the magazines that Jonathan had did something out of Hollywood, trying to escape a prison break out of the courthouse. Then the next year, in August, the very next year, a year later, George was killed. So it was 2 back to back. That inflamed people all over the country, especially men behind bars. George was in San Quentin and Soledad. We were in Attica and Greenhaven and other prisons in New York, but it affected us. So Attica rebelled. Attica rebelled in part because of George Jackson. And George Jackson rebelled in part because of Nat Turner. So there's a linear connection, right? So what the non-traditional approach did for us when we started the think tank, we realized that after Attica, it was clear to us that you're not going to take hostages and get out. You know, it might help men after you, but it's not going to help you. They're going to kill you. They would kill other officers to get to you. They were doing it on airplanes. Men were hijacking airplanes all over the world then. The PLO, etc. Right? They wouldn't negotiate with them. They would induce them to come out. So you let the women and children out, we'll let you out. Let the sick out, we'll let you out. When they got them all out, they kill them. So we knew that. We're reading the papers, we knew that. You might hear men in Attica say, we want safe passage to a country that does not have extradition connection with the United States. I'm not saying that correctly, but you understand what I mean. And that was on the table. Of course, they were never going to do it, but that was on the table. Yeah. Men thought they had a chance by asking that. They didn't do it, they killed them. So when we started the think tank, the year after Attica, we started the think tank.
What year is this?
We talking about 1972 at Greenhaven. Now Attica's several hundred miles away, about 300 or 400 miles away, 300 miles away from Greenhaven. But it resonated. A lot of men who were in Attica were transferred to Greenhaven. So there were still men who thought that you could take prisoners, take hostages, and be released. The think tank kind of thought differently. We came to the conclusion that if we had to risk our lives, that was going to be the last resort. There had to be some alternative means. So we looked at the criminal justice system. At that time, there were about 12,000 men locked up. 10 years later, there were almost 50,000 men locked up in New York State. In less than 10 years, it grew to 50,000. Because simultaneous to the civil rights era and the black power era, one way of undermining that rebellion, that yearning for reform, was to put drugs in the community. So a lot of men, those 50,000, half of those 50,000 were there for drug-related crimes. You know, and the community, our community, was kind of endeared to men locked up. To the extent that on the back of the Black Panther paper and the back of the Muhammad Speaks, what we believe and what we want, one of the things that was said in both papers is that we want black men, black and brown men in prison to be released in our custody. That was unheard of now. You could, if you said that now in the paper, you get laughed at. Somebody should close the door and hang up on you. So you out of your damn mind, right? But that's what they thought of us. So in prison, we felt that we needed a non-traditional approach, an alternative analysis to civics. And so that's basically what the non-traditional approach is. How much time am I working? I'm exhausted.
Switch that mic. Check your mic, Baba.
Keep flowing.
You answered all 8 questions.
Keep flowing,
Yeah,
man.
turn it off. Yeah. So,
Y'all
Baba,
just warming up now. Keep it
Baba,
going.
when you talking, just try to be mindful not to turn off the mic with your with the button. It's a button there.
Testing.
You good?
Testing.
You finished with that? You got more to say? You want me to ask you another question? You got another question?
You might as well go ahead, because I'll stay all day on this one.
All right, so the second question, so question 2, we thinking about Sankofa. Everything for us is about Sankofa. We always, Marcus Garvey said, man, you don't know your past, you don't really know where you're going, man. Right? So looking back at, that when y'all developed this in the 70s, what that is like 50 years ago? How many years we dealing with? 60 years?
50 years.
That's like 2 of me right there.
Yeah, of everybody in the room,
that's 2.
except for Kenny.
So, thinking about Sankofa, what my notes at? Looking back to go forward, what challenges did y'all have to overcome? Y'all in prison, y'all all got life in prison, y'all all in y'all 20s, probably most of y'all in y'all 20s. They just shot people down in Attica, right? So, you see what happened to George Jackson, Jonathan Jackson. So what did you have to overcome, and what lessons, personal lessons and communal lessons, that you can kind of pull from those 60 years that you want to share with us? Just thinking about developing community wisdom, the struggle to develop, the challenges to develop community wisdom. At the personal level and the communal level, what are some things that you could pull out for us?
Okay, one of the challenges was convincing men in prison that we could comprise a think tank. Think tanks in that era were well known because the government and major corporations used think tanks for war and business. They always went to think tanks. Probably the most respected and the most ambitious was called Rand McNally think tank. So we kind of patterned ourselves after them, not in what they did, but the way that they did it. Getting scholarly examples.
I'm sorry.
You keep cutting it off.
You literally are on the button.
You keep cutting it off.
Just so you know. Now you know. Yeah, you're good.
All right.
No, thank you. Because we want to hear. We need to hear this.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go. We're good.
You good, Baba? Keep flowing.
Okay. So we wanted to present ourselves as a think tank, to look at information that was used by the Urban League, NAACP, SCLC, to look at them, but do another analysis of their stats. The stats that they had, we thought that we could do other things with. We didn't necessarily like what they were doing with those stats. We disagreed with the direction that they were going, but we needed those statistics. So we utilized them. We got in touch with a think tank called MARC, Metropolitan Applied Research Center. The head of that center is Dr. Kenneth Clark. Dr. Kenneth Clark is the one who wrote Black Ghetto. He started the How Are You At? Harlem Associated Community Teams in Harlem. he also was the one responsible for the doll theory. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the doll theory. You guys familiar with the doll theory? No? Okay.
Him and his wife, Lily Clark.
Excuse
Black
me,
and
him and his
white
wife.
dolls
I'm
that they
sorry,
show.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
to make curse
yeah,
out
yeah,
there,
yeah,
right?
okay,
Mamie was in there too, sis.
I think it said doll.
Not leaving out the sisters.
Doll? Okay.
Okay, so Dr. Clark and his wife ran the Metropolitan Applied Research Center. He was amenable to coming in and see us and supporting our efforts to do social analysis. He started, I left that out. Dr. Clark, pardon me. Dr. Clark initiated the doll theory. The doll theory was used for the Board of Education versus the Board of Education versus the state of Kansas at the time, to show how segregation was harmful to black and white children. So in the doll test, this is before the age of television. He did this in 48, 49, so there were no TVs in the room. Children could not have been influenced by television. It was their parents and radio. So the children, they gave them three or four dolls, black, white, in between, etc. And they asked the children, preschool age, 4 or 5 years old, which is the pretty doll, which is the ugly doll, which is the bad doll, which is the good doll. Invariably, for all the negative things, they picked the black doll. So the parents had to give it to them. They didn't get it from the mass media. Of course, they were going to movies, they could still see that. But it just showed how in segregated society, and too, I should say, that the tests in the North were more vicious, more criminal, I should say, than the tests in the South. The Southern children had a better sense of self than the children in the North. One woman who was in the original test from Chicago, she was an anchor woman later on. She was an anchor for Channel 4 News. I've forgotten her name now. She might have been the first in the 60s, in the late 60s. She was the anchor person, and she talked about the effects that it had on her. Now she was an anchor woman for about 5 years when this Being Black in Black America came out. It was a documentary that she hosted, and she said 30 years later, because this is in the 60s, she was talking about in the 50s. 30 years later, her daughter, who was an educated woman like herself, had the same trauma. Even though her mother went through it, her mother was educated, and her mother taught her against that. It's still, the way society is set up, it still pervades in the consciousness of our children. It still gets through. So you can be an all-out rebel, black rebel, internationally read, and still have problems getting that message across to your children because they're surrounded by society. It tells them other things. Yeah. They spend more time with your children than you do. They may be in the house with you, but you got other devices now that lend themselves to teaching them other than socializing them to other than what you're trying to do. So anyway, Dr. Clark helped us out. He set things up. We got a little too ambitious. We started a program. We got a little too ambitious, and they ended up dismantling the program. The state ended up finding one thing or another to dismantle the program. We kind of had something to do with that ourselves. I think we thought we were all that at the time. We made the newspapers, etc. When that right, we thought that we can show them we can think, and we can think our way out of this box. So we violated some things that the state asked us not to violate. So we ended up shooting ourselves in the foot, so to speak. So we had to stop talking. We couldn't even call ourselves a think tank anymore.
What year was this?
This was, I'm going to say 76, 77. No more think tank. They said we were doing too much on the outside and not enough on the inside. We should be working on programs inside. We never wanted to be boxed in. We wanted to show the black community and others that we could be powerful citizens, community members in our own right. And we were not allowed to do that. They first of all, didn't like the fact that on our letterheads, we had a host of influential black people. But those black people, to be fair, a lot of those black people existed because of grants from the federal government. So they could only go so far. They would only go so far. The National Urban League, CORE, NAACP really never caught on to us. we appreciated some of the work that we're doing, even though we criticized the NAACP. We recognize if you were in the Deep South in the 60s or 70s or whatnot, in the 50s, and you wanted legal help, you would be glad to contact the NAACP. When they said the NAACP was here to see you, you fall on your knees. Yeah.
Thank Lord, none of us.
Even though, and feeling ourselves, we used to call them Uncle Toms. NWC, a bunch of Uncle Tom Negroes, etc., etc., whatever. Right? All they want to do is integrate, etc., whatever. Right? We recognize, be fair, that NAACP was a needed entity. Not all that we needed, but something that we should have been more aware of. What's the next question for you?
Thank you.
I say.
You're going to work, get us right to our last question, and much appreciated for those challenges and just, understanding y'all had to figure out what y'all had to figure out in those moments, right? So that's good, and H.O.L.L.A, we taking on that wisdom so we can figure out, how we navigate our challenges as well as, what we are inspired.
Can you pull it up?
I got it. So the last question, before we take a break, we'll take a break and then bring up our panelists for our rest of our conversation. The last question related to, warfare and, how do we combat the warfare in the context of restorative justice and the co-optation of the non-traditional approach. What did we learn, and I mean you, and the Green think tank and the, all those brothers and sisters apart. What did we learn about counterinsurgency that the next generation must know and understand and combat so we are prepared for such attacks on our community wisdom? So what did we learn about counterinsurgency? Right? And that, that might be from some of the stuff you was just talking about, how the administration shut y'all down and such, or whatever. But what did we learn about the attack on counterinsurgency? What did we learn about counterinsurgency? So that the next generation can understand and combat such attack on our community wisdom.
Well, I think that one, if not the first thing, the basic thing, is to recognize that counterinsurgency never ends.
Sorry about that.
I did it again.
It's probably easy to do. Let's think. It's like if you move your hand up even slightly, it seems like a fraction of
Yeah, don't worry.
Bring it back off.
All right, so I want to say that the basic thing, the lessons that we learned from that experience, is that counterinsurgency is pervasive, and it never stops. We have the tendency to think that we can take time off and come back to it and start the battle again. They never stop. Their think tanks never stop. The Pentagon never stops. The corporations who mine papers from college students take the intellectual efforts from college students and use them against the people that sometimes the people that they come from. They're very adept at doing that. I'm not saying that the students are conscious of what they're doing. Some of them are because they want to get jobs in the corporate world. But most of them are not. They're just trying to get an A. They're trying to graduate with a B average so they can go on to the next level. So in the process of giving their all, those papers are mined, by think tanks. And they study the minds of youth. They study the best of us. Not that all of us have to go to college to be considered the best, but you understand what I'm saying. That rigor, that discipline, that academic discipline, they take advantage of that. And a lot of us never learn that lesson. Another thing too, we don't, there are a lot of warriors and there are a lot of soldiers. Most men who consider themselves warriors in the street, they didn't know how to fight. As their hearts were in the right place, but they didn't know how to fight. They walked around in combat boots and army jackets and supposed to be underground. And did not understand that, and sometimes felt the necessity to talk about what you do, even in prisons. There's no statute of limitations on murder. So just like when you go in the precinct, you need to shut up. You know, but you teach your children when they talk to social workers, don't you tell them nothing about the household. Some of us never learned that lesson, so we get in the precinct or we get in the precinct or the county jail, we begin to run our mouths. We think we're educating people, and actually some of those people in there are looking to get out, and some of those people are actually working already for the government. We think because they're in there and they talk about they're from the community and they sold drugs, etc. They want to run like you, that we say. Not understanding that means that you're not a good soldier, you're not a good boy, you could never be. You could never be. Also, let me say this, Luke Mond was on the run, on the land. After I met him, he went home, he caught another charge, a serious charge, and he was hiding, trying to hide. He got in contact with some more men who knew much more about hiding than the average person did. They had learned that lesson. Yeah, it's a ramp, they had learned that lesson. And Larry said they told him and his partner were in the Bronx. They went up, we in the 70s now. So they took him to a block that had some deserted buildings that were boarded up. They showed him how to get in. Get in one door, go upstairs, push a plank off out the window, across to the next building, crawl over there and pull the plank out. So the building downstairs was boarded up, so if the cops or any vagrants come around looking for a place to stay, they couldn't get in it. And I said they told him, if ever you and your partner decide y'all disagree with something, you got to separate, don't argue to separate, because somebody's gonna get busted. So that's eventually, that's what happened. After several months, they got tired. But what they were told is that when you're on the land like this from your charge and you're a rebel, you're not gonna visit your family no more. Forget about your family. Your family does not exist anymore. If you're not ready to do that, don't consider yourself a rebel. So that was hard to do. You're still in New York City, you're hiding, but you know your family's there. I'm gonna sneak to see them, I'm gonna make a phone call. So you can't do any of that. That's hard. That's what a warrior does. You have to deny yourself that. That was hard to do. So I'm saying that to say that most people did not learn that lesson, because coincidentally, those men were called RAM. They were members of the Revolutionary Action Movement. I didn't even know that they were working like that. I knew I respected them for what they wanted to do, but I didn't know until Larry told me. And so Larry wanted to get out of the country. They had a pipeline to get from Brooklyn and elsewhere to Guyana. So he spoke to a sister named Yuri Kushiyama. Y'all familiar with Yuri?
Yeah. The legacy, man.
Yuri used to come to Green Haven to see us, etc. Right? So he spoke with her while he was on the land. He said, I called somebody who's connected to RAM, and he told me they couldn't help me. And she said, well, let me help you. Let me see if I can help you. So together, they went to Brooklyn, to Uhuru Sasha. Uhuru Sasha was a school called Freedom Down School in Brooklyn.
East.
The East.
The East.
So they went over there. Larry said he sat outside the door, and he heard Yuri arguing in his behalf. And the headmaster of the school, his name is G2 Wiyusi, passed away now.
G2
Yeah, said, pardon me, I mispronounced his name. It's Wiyusi. Larry said he heard him say, I can't help him. If we start helping people like him doing common crimes, what happens when we want to help a rebel? We send them to another country who's accepting them on our word. But if they know we just sending common thugs over there, they're going to stop. The pipeline's going to be closed. Said, in addition, so we went up to see those guys. We took our children up there. We did picnics with them. When they came home, not talking about Larry in particular, but men in prison in general, who claimed to be rebels inside, but when they went home, they were just engulfed by whatever was going on. They started doing what they used to do. It was easy to talk to revolutionaries, talk when you're inside. Who's not doing this, who's not doing that. When they went home, they abandoned their task. So he said, essentially, they didn't come around to help us even paint a room when they came out. You know, we sent buses up there full of people to visit these guys, took their families up there. They came, we didn't hear from them. Larry said he sat outside, and he said he felt his whole life he's passing before, because there's nothing he could say to defend himself. He didn't. He got caught up. You know, that's the same Larry Lukeman that you saw here, who was the changed man. So I want to say that a lot of us who thought that we were rebels, were really not. We were rebels when we wanted to be. You know, we want to shut the joint down. We did it when we wanted to. But then we get mad because they don't let in the visits. You said, well, you gotta let our family. No, we don't have to do anything. You always protesting. You went on strike, so that we gonna strike. You ain't going to see your family this week. But my family came up here for the, yeah, that's the war. They don't say that, but that's your punishment. So the punishment for a rebel is much more harsh than it is for anybody else. And it's harder still for rebels who are faking, because we don't understand what war is. And also, we think that we need a gun to be a rebel. We think you have to have a gun or a hatchet or some physical weapon to be a rebel, and that's not so. A lot of rebels, a lot of space, a lot of occupational opportunities for rebels with suits, with attaché cases, you know, doing more damage, just like there are people in the corporate world who do more harm to us than the Ku Klux Klan with a pen, redlining where we live at, hiking the ranch, etc. with a pen. They never slap you. They never call you nigger. They never slap you. They talk to you on the train about the Knicks, about the Bulls. They like Michael Jordan like you do. Then they go to work and sit down and do work on you with a pen. Deny you loans, deny your community loans, etc. Right? They know what they're doing. So we need rebels like that. We need soldiers like that to understand that I don't have to curse everybody out to be a rebel. I'm doing work and I don't have to shout what I'm doing. They should not see you coming. If they know you coming, you're not going to be an effective rebel. Which is my issue, my point, with men, not specifically the BLA, but the BLA included. I love the BLA because they were the best we had, but they didn't know what they were doing. You can't get locked up by yourself, shooting a cop by yourself from another city. How did they lock you up? Where's the evidence? Because you did something wrong. You left fingerprints, you left shells from casing that went up right. You ran your mouth in the pool room, you tried to recruit in the pool room, you blew your cover in the pool room. You know, I'm gonna be a rebel next week. I'm gonna finish my task next week. But right now I need a break. You know, so you get comfortable with somebody and you start telling you want to prove that you are someone, and you do too much stuff. Too many men were locked up. Were never supposed to be locked up.
Yeah.
And I love those guys because they put their life on the line.
Wow.
I love them because they made the police respect the rest of the black community. Said, I know that some of these Negroes are crazy out here. I gotta watch myself. Without them, we would not have had that respect.
Wow.
And then you gotta know how to sustain yourself. You need to know how to sustain yourself. Who fed you when you were on the run? How did you feed yourself? Where did your money come from? You have to have the means to sustain yourself. And I say this to H.O.L.L.A a lot. I'm saying it in front of H.O.L.L.A. I love these guys. They're very ambitious. They're all over the country. They've been all over the world. But they do not yet have an independent means of sustaining themselves. You know, they don't want to do grants because grants want to cut what they're about. You know, they're honorable. They stand on what they stand on. So they're not going to get funded. First of all, you have to know that corporations are not going to fund you if they think that you are going to be successful. That corporate money goes to foundations. Foundations look around. It's a public relations ceremony. They give money to people and make a lot to do about it. Make you think that they're for you. Make the public think that, they are right. The Ford Foundation, Colgate Foundation, they did this and that. But if they look at you, what you do, your proposals, and your proposals look like it's going to be effective, they're not going to sustain you, not going to support you. And why should they? Why should they help you displace them? That's what you're saying. Give me some money so I can knock y'all off. So we can get y'all out and put our people in there. And then you leave out of those boardrooms, they probably say, Negroes out of their damn mind. So we have to realize that. When you attack the corporate entity, you got to attack them with a suit on and a smile. You got to do that. And the alternative is, we need to sell products. We need to produce and sell products that sustain us to our people. Our people need to know that we need to get across to them that these stores that we have, we need to be getting that money from them. That's Ujama. How do we get the money from them? I just heard Dr. Boyce Watkins. I just heard Dr. Boyce Watkins talking about this. That how the dollar turns over in other communities other than us. In some communities it turn over 18 times. To be a viable community, it only needs to turn over 8 or 9 times. They went out of 10. 18 times in some community. He said it doesn't bounce in a black community. We work downtown, come uptown and spend our money downtown, or spend our money with people who shop downtown, who get their products from downtown. So the money does not circulate in the black community or our communities in general. We don't have a community. We have a neighborhood because we don't share the money with each other. There's some people who learn how to do that. We criticize them, critique them over their ethnocentric, but they understand that, and we have yet to understand that. And that's a part of being a warrior, that you understand that somehow we got to get our people to understand, listen, you need to shop with us, you know, but we have to give them products they appreciate. I can't force anything on you and tell you, just because I look like you, and just because I say I love you, I want you to buy a product that's superior. We can't do that. That's not being realistic.
Ashe. Community specific wisdom. We gonna take a 5 or 7 minute break. We would love for folks to ask Baba Hassan questions, talk to him on the side, kick it to him. After the 5 or 7 minute break, we coming up with our panel. We got Bree, Kumi, Isaac, and we're gonna have some community folks talk about how they protect community wisdom and add on to what Baba Hassan. And hopefully, time is moving. We was trying to make this a community conversation, man, but you know, we might not. There's no questions, but anybody, we got 3 minutes, so if any, you can't take up the whole 3 minutes. Somebody else wants some splashes. One second, Baba. Anybody else want to say something? Any affirmations? You could ask a question, but we can't answer it now. Any analysis you want to share yourself that came up from this? But just want to give Baba some ashe and want y'all to have a chance to say something to the room. David.
Yeah, I've been thinking or specifically when it comes to me and my family, I actually have come to realize in some sense that it's in general, it's been designed, it's kind of frustrating because I myself have thought about it. You see, from my perspective of where I'm from, I'm essentially from Staten Island, which is all the way out, essentially sort of almost separated by obviously the Bay and everything, New York and everything. And as a result, with my family, I feel like we're kind of isolated in such a way where it's we can't really we want to do more. I want to support more communities, more of our local communities. I do genuinely agree with you all that we shouldn't be really giving too much money and all this stuff to large corporations and whatnot if we want to actually get ahead and everything. But then at the same time, I feel like we're surrounded by nothing but large corporations and whatnot, and they've got to design it in such a way where it's how the heck?
30 seconds question.
How can we? How can we actually figure out any places to better support it and whatnot? Is there any way in which we could better support our communities and whatnot? Actually ensure that it grows in nature. Long time. I have other questions, but I'll say that for later.
Any other thoughts before Baba? Because we're going to answer that during break. Y'all should talk during break. Get his number. Any other questions y'all want to ask? Any other statements? Any other thoughts? Good, let's go, Kenny.
Good evening, everybody. I didn't necessarily have a statement, but what I bring is part of a solution. It takes a little minute, you know what I'm saying, but it's a part of, because now I'm just a student of the non-traditional approach, and we see what's missing. And one thing I went to school for, and I studied qualitative and quantitative research, is to see what's missing. Now we found out what's missing. And whatever you do, you have to have a sustained initiative. I mean, you gotta have that's one thing Gary Mendez used to always tell us, right? If it wasn't for Larry and Eddie and Alice, there wouldn't be no Gary Mendez coming into prison and tell us that we gotta think like futuristic thinkers. Because with Brother Hassan, the illustrious Hassan said, so he said we gotta think in 20 and 50-year blocks. Now some of us did 20 years in jail. I could talk about 50 years of history off the top of my head. Hassan, he could do 70, 80 years. So you can see what's missing. So I got a piece of the solution. And we talk about that. We get the time, we'll take the time now. If we got it tonight, cool. I got all night. See, because I'm because some of these funny guys do say they non-traditional approach. Don't talk about Eddie if it's not reflected in your work.
Oh shit.
Don't talk about it because you get gunned it down.
Put that on the calendar.
You get gunned it down. You manifest it by your work. You understand? So a lot of guys was in there, that was around, and this and that, and learned something. And then what you do? You went right to the corporate America. And you excuse my language, but you sucking them off at your own people's expense. You know what I'm saying? So I don't want to talk too much. I want to pass the mic so that we got to take a break.
We're gonna take a break, man.
Thank you. If there's no more comments or questions, we're gonna take our break for 5-7 minutes. Ashe.
Hey, helping us anytime too. Like, can we, you know,
I think that we either, and particularly those within our community, but there is.
Sorry.
Okay, no. Like there are opportunities and ways.
That was a good point.
Space and opportunity, as the elder said.
Yep.
So we are back. I hope you had a good break. Hope you had a good chance to relax. We had some new faces come in the building. We are going to wrap our night up with we're talking with some community experts, man. Some non-traditional approach. Some people who come from lived experience. And we want to add on to the conversation about protecting community wisdom and what wisdom we come from that is worth protecting. We got our comrades. You know, we got Pastor Isaac Scott in the building, confined arts, formerly incarcerated brother, father, husband, organizer here at this church. Part of the reason why we here, you know, all the time you see H.O.L.L.A doing events. But, you know, Isaac does a lot of work, you know, community board, family work. He had young people moving through the building. So shout out to our big brother Isaac in the building. We got, right on. Get some power for the people, man. Power to the people. They gonna give y'all what y'all give them back. If y'all ain't giving them no energy, y'all ain't gonna get no wisdom, man. If y'all give them that body language.
Yes.
Oh, all right. We got Kumi in the building. Right. Kumi is an organizer that's been with H.O.L.L.A for a couple of years now. You know, and Kumi is doing a lot of works. You know, a lot of body work. A young studier, a student, somebody always trying to learn about the culture, learn about the history. Somebody that takes the work to their family. You know, you see Kumi doing a lot of work with their mother.
Yes.
Bringing that wisdom with their mother. And a young person that definitely, you know, somebody that we should be giving more spaces to build. Shout out to Kumi, the legacy of Ghana too, man. Ghana, Bronx, you know, that Pan-African wisdom. Mount Vernon. We got Brittany in the building. Brittany is, you know, warrior, man. We've been hollering and kicking it with Brittany in many spaces over the last 3 years. You know, from email chains to Zoom meetings to large events around political prisoners. Talking about the work of the People Senate, right? Talking about, you know, how do the people get their own self-governance, their own self-determination, building off the work of Malcolm, off our political prisoner, a young person from New York City taking on that wisdom. I know Brittany more than I know anybody else from the People Senate.
Yeah.
Tagging Brittany is the People Senate, you know, the face of the People Senate from me. So shout out for your work. You know, we did another conversation around the article, and they reached out to us, tagging Brittany was like, yo, we respect that y'all wrote this. We need to interview you about this. Wow. They really appreciate us taking the time to write this, and we always appreciate Brittany and Tag, so thanks for being with us, Brittany.
Go Brittany!
Brooklyn!
We love you, Brittany! Oh yeah, she's from Bronx.
So who we starting off? We're gonna start off with Kumi? We start with Kumi. Start with Kumi. So the first question that we are asking our community panelists on my notes is, who are you? Who are your peoples? What lineages do you come from? What is community wisdom from your perspective, and how do you protect that? You got 4 minutes-ish to get to all of those.
All right, hello, peace. Great evening, Resurrect. Yes, my name is Kumi Owusu. I was born in the Bronx. I say I'm a Ghanaian New Yorker. I was born in the Bronx. I live in Yonkers now. It is not upstate.
Right.
Okay, it is right there. All right. Yeah, my people definitely come from Ghana, right? Cote d'Ivoire is like the farthest back my mom's lineages go.
Right on.
There's not many, but we have a couple elders still alive from like her lineage back there. So Cote d'Ivoire, West Africa, Bronx, a lot of Ghanaians in the Bronx, like Gun Neri, White Plains Road. So yeah, and even in the Yonkers too, there's a big like Ghanaian community over there. And to answer the question, like community wisdom, it definitely comes from our experiences. Definitely comes from like how we interpret, each other's like cultures, how we respect each other's cultures. I like to say that I'm Pan-African. And studying what that means, I can see why a lot of people don't agree with that, don't believe that they are Pan-African. But there was a post somewhere on social media, I think today or yesterday, and No Name is a rapper from like Chicago. She had like a book club, and she made a post about like all these different faces, these black faces that are from all these different parts of the world, and everyone's black: Brazil, Cuba, America, Ghana. So it's like, like understanding how like our experiences are linked together, and so part about how do you protect that community wisdom is that work. Understanding how peace match.
Right.
How are we linked? How are we connected? Right? And in that we can understand like why the world has treated us so differently for us to even have so many differences. But the similarities are much more important to me. And that's where the solidarity and unity work is at. So I'm gonna pass with that.
So we're gonna pass it right on to Isaac. So Isaac, let us know who your peoples, what movement lineages you come from. What is community wisdom from your perspective and how you protect it, brother?
All right, peace and blessings, everybody.
Peace. Right on.
Isaac Scott, father, husband, artist, organizer, human being. But I think who am I is I'm someone who's doing their best to use the gifts that I was given to pay it forward as much as I can. And that was something that I learned from the brothers coming home, and that was one, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that as a stepping out, pay it forward. Don't just come home and go do you and go live your life, but think about the people who you just left behind. So my work has been dedicated to that. So that's a part of my identity. So I just wanted to bring that in. But I'm a minister here. Shout out to Reverend Khalil G. James, who is the servant leader of this house, who's the senior pastor here, who let us, who to be very transparent with y'all, trusted me and trust me with the space and was like, yo, you can do whatever you want to do. I told him the work that I was doing. He's like, you can do whatever you want to do in this building. And that's rare, when you get spaces where you can do the work without it being scrutinized or without it being critiqued, where we can make mistakes and I always tell him this. I appreciate the space you gave me, and I try to be loyal to that, and that's important because what he did was he got a space and he opened up the space for me, which allowed me to open up the space for H.O.L.L.A. You know what I mean? So which opens space. You feel what I'm saying? So it's just because and that's something I learned at the university in my studies, and that advocacy could be just as small as you opening the door and making space for people to be able to meet. Maybe you don't have the courage and maybe you're not the organizer, but maybe you got the space for the organizing to happen. So you're a part of this movement as well. So just wanted to bring that energy in this space. But what is community wisdom? One, I got like a big issue with without being too long-winded, I got an issue with the word community only because of the way it's used. I think when we talk about community, we really have to identify what we mean, right? Because we have communities that are like how we identify with each other, right? I can be a community with the men, or I could be a community with my black people. But I think what we're talking about is our neighborhoods, right? When we're talking about community, because the wisdom that I get just in doing open streets here on 115th Street is very different from what y'all would get if y'all was doing programming in Brooklyn. There may be some similarities, there may be some overlap, but my community wisdom is very specific to this neighborhood, right? So so I just wanted to make that distinction, and then the wisdom that comes from that is our trial and error, you know, and it's a safe trial and error because we have the best intentions for each other, you know, so we can build programming and see that, okay, this didn't work the way we thought it would, and we can pivot and we can change and we can do things differently, and we're not further harming people, you know, so it's our space to be able to develop, you know, that's what our community wisdom is. How do we apply the knowledge that we got, right? So I graduated from Columbia University, and and I didn't go and try to get a Fortune 500 job. I brought all of that wisdom that I had right here, right? That wasn't wisdom, it was knowledge, right? Because that's what I got from the university, knowledge. But when I got here, I got wisdom because I saw what worked, what don't work, what applies, what doesn't apply, what's for us, and what's not for us, you know? So that I think that's the wisdom and our ability to do participatory action research amongst each other to see how we can better develop our community, because we can definitely have the Black Panthers and the Young Lords as, you know, our foundations, the part of our foundations for how we organize, but we also are building a foundation of how we organize for the next generation, people who are going to be organizing in 20, 30 years, because they're going to be talking about H.O.L.L.A, same way they were talking about the Young Lords, right? They're going to be like, yeah, it was H.O.L.L.A, it was the first it was the Black Panthers, then it was Young Lords, then it was H.O.L.L.A, y'all don't even know about them, and it's, you know, so it's just, that's our wisdom and our organizing and how we work in our community. And I think how you protect that, honestly, I'll be very honest, just coming from a space where I've had a lot of ideas stolen and tried to rework because folks got money to do it quicker than I could have done it. I think we protect it by keeping it close to us, honestly. And I think that we share with other people outside of our collective piecemeal. You know, we don't give them everything. We give them just enough that we're comfortable with, and not enough for them to try to replicate it and do it and fuck it up, if I could just speak freely, you know, and us just keeping it close enough to say, hey, you can see enough to see that we did it, but you don't really know what's in this recipe, you know what I mean? So you could try to just do what you saw happen, but you don't know how to put that together, and that keeps us set apart, but we even when we give up our ideas, we still set apart because we just so good at doing what we're doing, organizing and thinking strategically and surviving. So I'll just be quiet.
Ashe, we cooking. We cooking. If you don't know, man, tap out to the Kabaka, Alice, and Luke Mine website. Isaac also helped us make the Kabaka website. This is also Isaac's work. Log on, learn about the movement, buy you a book from the methodology, the non-traditional approach about the legacy tours.
I got my book.
Ashe. This made me think about my son Corey, which is also part of Kabaka Alice and Luke My Institute. We helped found this institution. This is our own independent African institution building off the NTA. And one of the things, to your point, we're trying to develop our own economic sustainability, and we're trying to develop economic projects from our culture. So my son do a lot of cooking of his family culture, right? And we have an event right here on Saturday for our reunion, and we're gonna have our son using his business that we're trying to develop out of the Kabaka Institute to be feeding us again, right? But as we've been studying some of that, we've been studying a lot of cookbooks, and what's this white lady that was on TV? All these Martha Stewart. All these people got black people's recipes. All of these white people that got TV shows, cookbooks. That's our grandmas from Mississippi. That's they stuff, right? That's another form of co-optation when you don't keep it close.
I don't know. Some of their meals, I don't.
I'm just talking about just even knowing how to. I agree with you. Anyway, Brittany, just to add on to the conversation, who are you? Who are your peoples? What lineages you come from? What is community wisdom from your perspective, and what community wisdom do you protect?
Peace, everyone.
Peace.
I'm here today representing a lineage of Southern Black people. My father's side of the family is from Virginia. My grandmother, the last grandparent I have left, I'm grateful for. She's from Monroe, Louisiana. So I'm very grateful to be able to soak up some stories from her. But I'm also the oldest daughter of both my parents, so I'm carrying a lot of nurturing and maternal energy, and carrying on what I think my mom tried to invest in me as far as Black history, because she, of course, she was born, late 60s. So she was born in a time where, the Black Panthers were trying to raise hell, but, she was the only daughter of my grandmother. So, my grandmother couldn't be a part of the movement and raise my mother at the same time. So I feel like my mom tried, and, every time Black History Month came around, she would have on whatever they turned on for Black History Month, whether it was a Martin Luther King movie or whatever. I'm like, I don't want to watch this shit. I don't want to watch this, because they always end up dying. Like that's always the end of the story for them. And unfortunately, none of my family knew about the movement. None of my family knew about our elders who were captured. So they didn't have anything to pass on to me. So for whatever strange reason, some part of me feels like my mom tried, and that little part of her is why I'm here right now. She transitioned back in 2020. So I when I do have a moment to thank her, or when I do have a moment to be like, I can't believe I'm here. I speak to her spirit, and I thank her for at least trying, because she, with what little she knew about Black history, that was her coin, and that was her drop in the bucket. And I commend Kumi for being able to do anything with her mom, because trying to take back what we're doing as revolutionaries, or just as people trying to decolonize ourselves to family, it's extremely difficult. So that is, I think that's the wisdom. I think that is the wisdom. Once we learn how to, I'm sorry, that transition was messy.
No.
But I think because we are all in different spaces, as the brother was speaking to, organizing wherever you are looks differently. Walking through Harlem, I can't tell you the pain I feel, and still seeing victims of drugs, and the damage they did to our people, our communities, and the nerve for them to lock our folks up for consuming, either selling or using a product they put in the community. The nerve,
and they continue to just ignore it.
And that is not wisdom, but it is a chapter. It's a lesson. Once you learn, you go back as far as you possibly can, like with the work that H.O.L.L.A is doing with children and youth. When we find the time to get our elders and the youth in the same room at the same time, like a campfire, to just let them talk. Just let them talk. That is, I think, the part of our work. That is the community wisdom. To be able to sit our children in a room to soak up firsthand whatever experiences our elders can share with them. It could be from anything, like being able to have block parties, or just that old lady like in that Spike Lee movie.
she just sitting at the window. Just sitting at the window, either telling you off. Get from in front of that store. Ain't nothing good ain't nothing good there for you. Get from in front of my house. Go home. The light, the freaking street light is on. Just being able to center our elders in that space again, as far as not being so protective over our children, but letting the elders say what they need to say, because whether it's really sweet or really harsh, it's coming from a good place. And stop inviting everybody to the cookout. Stop inviting everybody to the cookout. We have to vet our people a little better. And lastly, a conversation I was having with my partner as far as stunting goes. Stunting, yes. Back in the day, hip hop grew out of a place of poverty. So our vanguards of rap or whatever, they were rapping from a place where they were trying to lift themselves up and lift up the people that they thought they were speaking to, that got tired of seeing drug addicts out their door. But now stunting has become a individualistic thing where I got this and you don't, type of thing. And it's just like we have to fix that, because that's why our youth want to become rappers. That's why they want to become artists, not realizing that a lot of the people that came out of that got screwed over and have nothing to speak to the part they played in making legendary music. So yeah, breaking, the decolonizing work that we're doing. It just, we have to keep working together to get it done. My bad, that was
Ashe. Now that was fire. You got the time? You looking at me with the time? All right, so we over time. We at 8 o'clock. We going to show of hands. Do we got one more question? Can we take one more question, or can we take two more questions? One more question. Isaac said two more questions. Well, we got. How y'all feeling, community? Y'all still got time?
Yeah.
We got to go. All right, we got one more question. We got to make this count, everybody. Make this count. What we going to do is, even so it's just one more question, we got to bring in our little big brother. Shout out to Dr. Ori. Ori Simon Burton, right? Eddie Ellis, gave him assignment. He said Eddie Ellis gave him assignment, so we honor the legacy of the non-traditional approach, and like Baba said, it show up in many ways. Right here, he's talking about this concept called nomenclature reform. Nomenclature reform, and he's saying that the CIA, they think it's important that they build whole conferences around how do you use language to confuse people, how do you use language to miseducate people, and how do you make it a science, propaganda. That's where propaganda comes from, a science. So when we talking about war in the NTA, it's a lot of levels to the war, and Dr. Ori is giving us another thing, and that relates to what we talking about, the article about program pacification, how restorative justice is a nomenclature reform that confuses the people, that conflate the truth, right? And when they throw it down your mouth in so many ways, you can't see out of it. You can't see out of it. So we want to bring Ori in real fast, and then we're going to ask the panelists to give their reflections on what's coming from the article and close us out.
How we popularly understand the Attica Revolt. So much of the attention of those in power is around narrative control, public opinion, again, as you said, psychological warfare, brain warfare. I mean, all of these, and even as you point out, even to supersede concerns over physical violence and physical carceral conditions. It really is. I mean, this issue of what we think is happening is their primary issue. So I don't know if there's more that you would want to say about this, but even when you were talking about, you talked about, I think you mentioned it already, nomenclature reform was another thing I had written in my notes here that you talk about. I mean, even down to what we even think we're using in terms of language around this, they're focused on manipulating. So if there's more I could get you to say on that, please do. I mean, because it's fascinating and powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. Part of what I wanted to try to do, a book is a book, right? It's like, I'm not one of those people who think that I'm engaged in revolutionary struggle because I'm writing a book, right? But there's a couple things that I can do. There's a couple things that I can do. One is to be extremely clear, intentional, and disciplined in my language, such that it makes the stakes of language and words clear, and to show that that is actually a terrain of struggle, that is an active terrain of struggle, that our opponents and enemies know that we're engaged on, but that oftentimes we cede that terrain and use the terms that were introduced to us by our enemies, right? So you're talking about, that's a quote from Paul Linebarger, who's a psychological warfare expert during the Cold War. And there was this sort of symposium held at American University, I believe, which was an attempt to get academics more involved in the Cold War effort. And he had this long sort of narrative about, these terms the words are not neutral, and there's too many terms that are being circulated that are basically making us look bad. We need to introduce new terms into the lexicon, and he.
So I'm gonna stop there, man. You gotta study Dr. Orr. He was about to go in, but our article was a response to program pacification, nomenclature reform, right? We wrote this to the nonprofit industrial complex, to the academy, to philanthropy. This includes peacemaking, criminology, restorative justice, transformative justice, the $1 Million Block Study, Jeremy Travis analysis, that they all come home. For their roles of program pacification, academic plagiarism. All these people use the NTA and never cite it, never talk about the lineage, never talk about where it comes from, and pull pieces of the program from it. And this analysis is protracted. We said this in the 70s. Hassan and them said this in the 70s. We said this in the 90s. And we saying this again. They still in our wisdom. It's not our wisdom. We need to go back to our own wisdom. That's why we developed, like Bob was saying, we developed alternative analysis. We was critiquing not just the criminal justice system, but social justice systems as well. Civics. We was critiquing what the community was calling civics from our perspective of being inside and seeing the war from, like Larry said, from the bridge, right? Talking about destruction of civilization, Chancellor Wilson. How do you see the community from up on the bridge? When you're in the community, it's hard to see the community. But if you go back and you watch the community from a bridge, you get the understanding of how the community is moving. Who go to work at what time? Who outside on the block? But when you in the community, you might don't see that. But when you step back and look at the perspective of it, so all that to say, we want to know what y'all pulling from the article. What from the article y'all want to speak to close out? You heard what Ori was talking about. This is a little bit why we wrote the article, the fight for our community wisdom, to let people know don't just abandon your own knowledge. Fight against this terrain of war on the language level. We got to write articles. We got to stand on our elder scholarship. This is a terrain of war. So let's start with you, Brittany. What you want to speak to? What you want to talk about? What you want to end this conversation with? Talking about the article, talking about program pacification, talking about protecting community wisdom. It don't necessarily got to be about the article. How you want to close out? How much time they got?
They got 2 minutes, and we got another question after this.
All right, 2 minutes. We only doing one question, I thought they said.
But then Ozzy said it's okay.
All right, so you got 2 minutes. Look at your series the time. 2 minutes. What you want to take from this article or what you want to take from jumping off of this article that can help us think about fighting against counterinsurgency warfare or protecting community wisdom?
I would like to take from the article the statistics that you pointed toward as far as the targeting of of our communities and our, males or females that are behind the wall, and how purposeful that was in, as I was speaking to, as far as the government planting drugs in our community and being able to put our folks behind the wall, whether they were selling or using the product. They trapped us, they trapped our folks, and were able to, and even with just weed, like they were able to put so many of our people behind the wall for trying to survive, when they, in the first place, put our people in a position to need an out to either survive or go to jail. So I want so badly to manifest that H.O.L.L.A will continue to grow into different boroughs in New York and just all over New York, because not that no one is doing youth work, but I think to what intention you to put into the all of H.O.L.L.A, the intention that goes into the work that y'all are doing to involve ancestral teachings, just always having an altar, and from where you're digging the wisdom from can do our youth so much good in being able to go back that far in our history to decolonize, to keep from falling into the traps of wanting to stunt when you're wearing a bunch of white or French European people that don't give a shit about you. Go freaking go thrift shop. Go thrift shop. It's way cooler. So yes, just youth work and keeping our kids out of jail.
And Brittany was talking about the basic question: how is it that blacks and Latinos represent less than 28% of the general population of New York State, while comprising 85% of the total state prison population? Yep. How is it that over 75% of that state prison population come from New York City? How do we account for this disproportionate representation? How did this happen, and what are the future implications? Kumi, same question. How do you want to close out?
Go ahead. Similarly to what Brittany was talking about, I feel like, this whole belief of separation of church and state, right? It really has black people, especially in a bad way, right? I think H.O.L.L.A is a really great example of what you can do when you combat the state with your spirituality, and also understanding that the state doesn't even believe that. They don't move like that. So the article is really good at tracing how this co-optation happened. So I think it was the Mennonite Quakers that were some of the first people in the prisons doing work with people in prison under the guise of community work or whatever have you. Meanwhile, they were taking that work back to their own communities, right? Their own white Quaker communities, and using that work there. But you had people like Eddie Ellis telling them your analysis of what we're doing is not the full analysis of what we're doing, basically. So that way of doing work with outsiders has always been the way that they've led, right? And we, living in the communities that they lead, don't understand, Jewish people don't separate church and state. Zionists don't do that. They use their religion to yield their power to get the buildings that they get, to get the business that they get, the loans that they get. The space that they have is because of their religion. So it's what could African people do? What could black people do if we lean more into our spirituality for us? One of the best things I ever got from H.O.L.L.A was the best political state is spiritual, right? No, the best political stance is spiritual, right? And it's literally, and I had to see, and I tell people all the time, even if you can't articulate your political agenda or whatever, everyone lives out their politics. Everybody lives out their politics. And a lot of black people, wanting to be more American or whatever have you, they're leaning more conservative, they're leaning more even liberal, because that's still not African. But yeah, they're leaning more into these things that's stripping them away of their ability to articulate how is it that the state is really imposing and oppressing your life and your family's life. And African spirituality, a lot of the tenets in African spirituality, all of them really, the unity, the abundance, the love, everything there gives you what you need to combat the state in a way that like you're still fortified. You know, like you don't feel like you're wasting your time, wasting your energy, and you build community with people that actually have the energy to sustain it, right? And are willing to like do the work to like understand the wisdom to like sustain that. So that's what I'm thinking about right now as far as the article. Like, a lot of people won't say that. A lot of elders won't say that, but like it's shown in how we live. Like separation of church and state, really believe that, and like we need to die.
Thank you, Isaac. Rap Rick, keep us going, man.
Okay. Thank you.
Let me ask the question again.
No, I'm gonna just no, because I feel like when you asked to the last question, you do more. I'm gonna just stick with the first one.
Okay.
But no, I think and I'll try to be quick because I know we're on time. The language thing, I wanted to just say something about that because that's an even deeper understanding of the power of language. So I remember when I was at the university in 2016, we launched a study around measuring the impacts of the words inmate, prisoner, and convict because we knew that the words carry stigma, so we wanted to see if we applied it to narratives about people. It's same story about two different people, just use inmate or prisoner versus a different word. It could have been doctor, lawyer, or and we saw that just naturally people had more dehumanizing perceptions about people who carried those labels. So we also know that there's science shows us that labeling has an impact. So that's like surface level stuff. So hearing what Dr. Ori is saying kind of is like, yep, so much deeper in that they are holding conferences to know how do we story tell. I just actually came from a pre-trial event down at NYU last week, and one of the workshops was on storytelling and narrative building. So if we doing it, and I've been in the work of the arts for the last 12 years, so we always talking about storytelling in the arts and changing the narrative. So we know at the highest level where they have the resources to really, and I love what Baba said earlier. When we take breaks, they never take breaks. Like they have the finances to go 24/7 planning, but we have to take breaks. We gotta rest. So it's just like you know what I mean. So that was the language piece. And in 2019, H.O.L.A participated in that language conference we did that anchored on that. So language has definitely been something that we've been focusing on, especially as an artist. I'm always looking at like how we tell stories, how we build narratives, because I can tell you my synopsis and your synopsis may be very different about the same situation, right? But for the article, a few things I would say I've taken from that. I think the biggest thing is prevention and really looking at our community as the solution, and not so much re-entry. So one of the things that, so the reason that I'm here at another church, Youth and Family Outreach, was because I was starting to think like, hold up, all the work we're doing is at the end of the bid. Like we want to come and patch things up once people are home or after they've gone through. And when you talk to people, a lot of what they've gone through has happened in the home or at the younger ages. So it just started to make sense to me, like if I was going to have an impact, I should probably start working with young people and families. So that's kind of what led me to be working at an organization like this and leading the organization. But also like, when we don't look at it from a preventative end, we are actually perpetuating this whole reentry industrial complex. When we say, hey, I'm just going to look at it on the reentry side, then I'm just saying I'm just going to patch up the holes. I'm not really going to look at what's creating these craters in the ground, and that is just as bad, as just flat out knowing it and ignoring it. So I think we all have an obligation to look at community. Eddie gave us a good blueprint in that, and in the videos just speaking to like, hey, people coming right back to these communities. So if we don't make the communities better, then it's a cycle. We're not doing nothing, and that just resonated so much with me. So I think that's like the biggest thing that I get from the article, because the article made me just look deeper into the non-traditional approach and just understanding more Like, what are we talking about? What are we doing? Also, one of the things I'm seeing, and I'll be quiet with this, I'm seeing theft at a different level, in a different dynamic. The article kind of shows how a sort of an approach has really been like picked apart in little different areas, and then I'm shutting up now. But just how people can take little bits and pieces of something and just use it for their own benefit and use it for their own sort of career goals, if you will. Because that's a lot when we see professors writing things, getting grants and getting like I worked in the institution, so I know like what you get. You get fellowships, you get opportunities, you get global recognition when you take. They'll pay $1,000 to get 10 formerly incarcerated people in the room, pay us that 1,000, and then get a grant for like 30,000 to go around the world and talk about what they learned in that room. You feel me? That's exactly how it be happening. Exactly how it be happening. When organizations get all of this money and they raise money, how much money in any of these reentry programs actually go back to putting money in people's pocket? This is what we gotta look at. They don't put money in your pocket. They'll give you resources out the wazoo, but they'll never put cash back in. But they get cash for all that. You feel me? So I'll leave it there, but that's kind of what was really coming out of all of that.
So we out of here, man. I want to thank everybody. This is gonna be our last question. I'm an example, 60 seconds, and I'm passing it. I want to thank everybody for coming out. Thank y'all for sharing your wisdom. Thank y'all for listening to our community experts. We heard from our Baba, deep stories. I don't know if this is recorded, but I need to watch this back, man. We heard from our community experts. Deep stories. We heard from Dr. Ori. Make sure y'all publish this article, man. We still got to 12 o'clock. Repost the article. Sign up to the Kabaka Alice website. H.O.L.L.A, we got our youth program coming up. Look on our website. If you ain't signed up, if you ain't signed your family up to our youth program, sign your family up to the youth program. You can look at
first page.
You can get it on our website. Sign your family up to the youth program. The legacy. Mashley went through it. Kumi went through it. Jasiri went through it. I went through it. We got an event tomorrow at Girls and Gender Equity. We showing our documentary 1 to 4. We got an event Saturday at 151st Street in Adam Clay Powell, honoring Eddie Ellis again, having a libation. We're going to be right in front of where Eddie grew up at, and we're going to be doing a legacy tour related to the book that we just read, talking about, same thing Brittany was saying, how do we bring our community together and remember our memory together and use that as a practice of organizing. With that, I will pass it this way.
Question.
The question is, what community wisdom you want to leave people with? What actions people could do to stay community strong? What works you doing that you want to let people know? So anything you want to do want to let people know. Yeah. Let people know what gives people some power, what y'all doing, how they can stay connected to the work that's going on. Any lessons you want to take from this conversation? But I think the work that y'all doing is the lessons.
The People's Senate is having a counter celebratory mobilization on July 4th, 2026. I think that's this year. So July 4th. And the ultimate goal is to try to get however many people to Atlanta, but I think I would love to push and encourage folks right here in New York, wherever you are, to have a watch party to include community. Atlanta is great, but this is home for most of us who will be there. So I want for all of us to be able to take what is heard and the energy that is going to be felt in that space, and I want us to be able to move forward from there and shake this whole state to its bones. They are being destroyed, and I couldn't be happier to see it. And I just want for us as Black and New African people to help push them even further down to their doom. And there's no other way to do that but together. So yeah, get up with me about the mobilization. Or Jasiri, he's the convener of the mobilization for Northeast. So yeah, you can talk to either one of us about that and figure out how you can have a watch party of your own. Yeah.
Any closing? Which I close us with? Any words of power? Any words? Any reflections? Any positive words to close us out with? Y'all workshop doing that people need to tap into.
So thank you for sharing that. Brittany, I say for me, yeah, I am deep in like the body work right now, and I feel like we definitely don't move our bodies enough, but as African people, we're the best ones at it. You know what I mean? Like our bodies are like the best out here. So yeah, body work, like getting body work, like looking into the best thing to put into your body, like as far as energy and everything, as far as food. I'm in like therapy, and it's like very important to have a safe space in your house, right? Can't be the whole house if it's not, but like creating a center where you can ground yourself, where you can like center yourself, where you can regulate. And it's really about regulating. A lot of this work, community work, because our community is so like, has been so like oppressed with like chaos and everything. A lot of people are dysregulated, right? And don't really know how to regulate. So the more you regulate yourself, that's really how energy works. Like, if I'm calm, if a baby's having a tantrum, we want to like yell or like whatever, punish them. But like, if you're calm and you sit by them and you like comfort them and you help them through their emotional irregulation, you know what I mean? Like, you have to like be present with yourself as far as like, I got 20 years on anybody that I'm around, any child that I'm around. You can't dysregulate me, right? Like, I have to tell myself that, because sometimes it can get crazy, right? Even with my own family too. Like, I have to be present with myself and be like, I've been around y'all my whole life. Like, I've obtained ways and means to regulate myself around y'all. Like, y'all can't dysregulate me. And that's my power, right? So, and that's what's going to be reflected, and that's what's going to be learned from other people, from you. So, definitely H.O.L.L.A's 24-month process, look into that. I wouldn't really know a lot of any information without H.O.L.L.A. So, look into that. Look into, like, their extended community as far as like People's Senate, Palestine. To the Free People's Clinic at the People's Church a couple times a month. I think the next one is the 29th from 2 to 5. So body work is free, reflexology is free, acupuncture is free, Reiki is free. There's libations, there's food, there's people that you can speak to and further connect with. So yeah.
60 seconds. Okay.
All right. I just want to thank H.O.L.L.A for the panel. Thank you for your work. And thank you to the panelists too. Thank you for sharing wisdom. I feel like I got a little smarter here. I would just leave us on a note of holistic wellness. I think so. We are year 2 in a community health initiative, Open Streets Art and Wellness. So we're Open Streets partner now, so we are able to block off 115th Street, right down the block, from Park and Madison, 6 Fridays. It could be as many Fridays as we want, but we chose 6 Fridays in the summer where we bring out art and wellness practices right on the block to the community.
Come on now.
And when we talk about when I talk about holistic wellness, and this is also an approach that I've been incorporating into how we work. And and we're modeling this off of the 8 dimensions of wellness, which is spiritual wellness, emotional wellness, social wellness, physical wellness, environmental wellness, occupational wellness, financial wellness, and intellectual wellness. So really looking at our whole self, So this is really important, and I think so I would love to just have y'all be a part of it in some way, shape, or form. Be present. Table, do presentations, speak, come out and present the work, talk to the people. But I think this conversation here is all a part of our wellness. This is a part of our intellectual wellness, a part of our social wellness, right? And it's ultimately going to help my physical wellness, So I think that it's in my emotional wellness because I can make sense of the BS that's happening to me, and I can understand better. So I would say, tap in. I would love to just work with y'all more in this capacity, and not just with those who formerly work in the health and wellness field. You know, because as I just pointed out, health and wellness is very holistic. That's it. I'll be cool.
We are officially concluded. Thank you, Barbara Hassan. Thank y'all all for coming. Build with each other. Make sure y'all take flyers. We got 2 extra articles if y'all want to. If somebody want an article, we got 2 extra ones.
Here, you still talking.
Can I give you this one? Huh?
We still talking.
We still talking. Yes. We out here. We wrapping up, man. We wrapping up. Yes. We got something here Saturday. Saturday we got our reunion.
Taking everything down?
We're not taking nothing down.
What time Saturday?
Saturday is internal, but you part of the internal team. If you want to come here, Saturday internal.
Saturday's an equal time.
I know. Y'all gonna think.
Yeah, that's why we said
Just like
we need to get that together.
Anybody want to do like a wealth building?
We got updates.
If anybody want to do like a wealth building, personal finance like workshop, we're available to do that. Mindful Money LLC. We're trying to create updates. We're expanding the think outside the cell community. That's what Joseph Robinson, Don Cole, he's one of our fellows at MTA. And we're going to give people money to invest. We're going to walk you through the whole step and give you some money to invest.
I got a bunch of young people here.
That's what I'm here for, like kind of recruiting. They need your information. So like we got 15 people on the call. You can do it for free. You know what I'm saying? And like then the whole workshop. All you have to do is have to know your social security number, bring your laptop, and he's gonna show you how to invest. A lot of times like but then he's just not showing you. David,
Alright, y'all. One mic. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Just one more. One mic. 1 second. 60 seconds. X is gonna close us out with a poem, and then we can go about all our.
I've been piercing myself. My body was calling me.
Sorry. This is called Mark's Linen. Okay.
Mark's Linen.
My friend.
Hold on, let me make sure I got you on camera.
Did it on me with.
Y'all keep talking, but y'all about to miss some Mark's Linen.
Alright, come on, we cooking.
Mark's Linen ain't never been to the hood. Ain't never forged sustenance from no bush. Ain't never rapped over beats of transmuted totemic history. Mark's Linen got fat in that same Europe that starved my ancestors.
Talk about it.
Wrote truths extrapolated from my own tongue. From ancient egalitarian societies torn asunder and bleached to European measurements at Berlin, Mark's great-great-grandfather then probably held me at gunpoint in Namibia. God bless the child, able to see for himself. Europe has always had a fancy for naming things. Patent office, more plagiarist than pedantic. Pretend we ain't been holding down the means of production for thousands of years before a baby boy was even born. Been making mistakes and miracles, too long to see the proselytizing of absolute truth as anything other than masses' old inflated ego. Been following his maps, his theories, his lewd legitimacy long enough to know he's chasing his own tail. Mark's Linen saw through foggy, cis-white, hetero-patriarchal glasses. Diminish my somatic identity into social classes, but I don't dislocate my magic to make believe in science. Because you know what, my auntie overthrew the fascist South for breakfast. Have you ever had fresh ground glass grits? And was it the proletariat of Pookie-Nam who hotwired Asada's getaway car? Contradiction cannot contain nor capture the metaphysics of Mama Lawa and Irizuli. So I shall not lay prostrate in the halls of university and will not denounce my truancy from native re-education schools. I form no romance with African utopian historiographies either. If asked do I prefer the white or the black boot on my jugular, I say neither. Nkrumah alone did not grant me my liberation. My cousins with the machete did. Man babysat my sons while I set fire to the Parliament building. And the lady selling mangoes kept my lookout. My grandmother prayed. And not for more of the same with a different name, so I dared to invent, but how dare I exist? Dare to remember and revolutionize what you mandate. I forget. My synonyms, meat on the bone, is the size of my people's flesh. So I will erect no effigy in their memories. Will not pray at their mission church, however more civil in comparison to their predecessors it seems to be. Looks can be deceiving. I cannot summon myself to dream of freedom, only to awake in my nightmare's image.